Hey, everybody, Matt Rosenthal, host of Digging In. Today's guest, unbelievable, Michael Martocci, multi-talented guy, has two businesses. And what makes him so interesting is he has taken his two passions. One is singing and the other is sports, and turned those both into successful businesses. The singing you guys are going to love. As a fan of Frank Sinatra, what I love about Michael is that he keeps the music alive. He tours the country and he really does justice to Frank Sinatra, keeps that music alive. You guys are going to love it. His other business is Big Blue Travel, sports, entertainment, hospitality. What he is doing is just amazing. So what you're going to hear today is how you take creativity, how you take your ideas, and how you take your passions and how you make those into successful businesses. I really hope you enjoy the episode. Hey, what's up, everybody? Matt Rosenthal. I'm here with you today with an amazing guest, really exciting guy. His name is Michael Martocci, and he is, I'm telling you, an inspiration, self-made guy. But what I find most amazing about him, and what I can't wait for you to listen to for the next 45 minutes to an hour, is how he built two businesses, both of them passions. We talk about how we want to do something that we're passionate about. And a lot of people say, well, how do you do that? Michael's done it with two different things. He's still doing it. And when you hear what he's doing, you're going to love it. It's amazing. So, Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Matt. Much appreciated.
Man, I knew a little bit about you, but what I learned about you in the past couple of days as I was getting ready to talk with you is actually a surprise. And I'm going to tell you why. I didn't know you're going to talk about the musical endeavor that you have, right? What you're involved in. What you don't know about me and what I didn't know about you was we share a very similar passion. So you've chosen, right? You do a lot of music work with Frank Sinatra's music. Let me tell you real quick about why this is so special to me. So music has been a big part of my life since I was a kid. It's been a place to escape. It's means something different to everybody, but for me, it was just this really cool place that in the place that I grew up and the difficulties that were surrounding me, I could escape to music, and that could be anytime I wanted. As I got to be a little older, when I was around 10 years old, my grandmother moved to Florida. I would go visit her 3 or 4 times a year. And the thing that I will never forget is every single time I was there for 1 or 2 weeks at a time, we would eat dinner every night together and she would play Frank Sinatra. She would play that music. She had CDs, cassette tapes, I think even back as far as 8 tracks. Those songs stuck in my head to the point where Sinatra is like a passion for me. I love Sinatra's music. What I love more about it is when I hear a Frank Sinatra song and I hear that voice, I think of my grandmother and I think of all those memories. And that's what music does for people, right? It gives you those connections to a time. And the fact that you sing Sinatra's songs and that you're keeping that music alive, which you're going to talk about, for me, that's special because I didn't know that was part of what you did until I started researching to talk to you for the show. I just knew you were a business guy. So I want to thank you for what you're doing before we even get started.
I appreciate that.
That is, it's a big deal. So I want to start off by asking you this. What does the music mean to you?
Music means to me kind of like what you touched on a little while ago. Growing up in Brooklyn, New York, where I grew up, I now live in New Jersey. Out here, I'm 60 years old. I just turned. So I grew up in Brooklyn, left Brooklyn when I was 25 years old, which was a great education. But I remember coming from an Italian family, music was a big part of everyday life and every occasion. And my mom and dad were big Sinatra fans. So basically, that's why I was introduced to it. And my grandmother and grandfather, the same thing. So at communions, you heard Frank Sinatra. At birthday parties at the house, they danced to Frank Sinatra. Every occasion, whether it was happy or sad, there was a Sinatra song that went along with it. So that was instilled in my brain. I always say when I came out of the womb and I was brought home, I must have heard Sinatra music constantly in the house. And it was embedded in my brain. And, which instantly took a passion to it when I knew what I was listening to as I got a little older. And it reminds me of the time of my grandmother when she celebrated her 90th birthday, or the time when my mother and father on their anniversary were dancing for their 50th anniversary. So music does definitely bring back the memories of our childhoods and our life to music. And that's basically where it came from.
It's a feeling like you could be anywhere and hear a song and you just know. But this, the Sinatra stuff, it's just special beyond pretty much any other entertainer out there. I mean, for obvious reasons, and that music, everybody's got a story, everybody's got a song, everybody's got a moment. Whether you like Sinatra or not, doesn't matter. Everybody can connect with it. So before we start diving into how that all came about, talk to me about Brooklyn. Talk to me about how you came up.
I always tell people that was probably one of the best educations. I bet that no college, no any prep school or any internet course could ever teach you a lesson growing up in Brooklyn, New York. Basically, you had to be on your toes at all times. You had to compete to stand out. You learned a little bit of, people didn't take advantage of other people, but you learned to protect yourself. You learned how to, not only physically, but mentally. And it just gave you a great education on character and knowing that your word is your bond. If you say something, you better do it because you're going to be called out on it. And I think it's made me the person that I am today. I think anybody that's successful in business or just in life or just a good person, you go back to their childhood and look at their years growing up. There's always been that foundation of the old neighborhood or where they grew up or the parents in their life or the grandparents. It's always that makes you the person that you are today. And Brooklyn was like the Harvard of street colleges. I could put it. It was a great. I mean, we've had everybody there from the gangsters that they talk about. They were there, and the criminals were there. The elements, and it was the good people, and there was the priest that you could go talk to. But basically, you saw everything, and you decided what person you wanted to be after seeing a little bit of everything that's good and bad. And it just helped. It molded me who I am today.
This was in, let's see, the 60s, I would guess.
Born in May 5th. They named a holiday after me. It's called Cinco de Michael. May 5th, 1961, I was born. First man sent in space, Alan Shepard, on that day.
So you really experienced Brooklyn at a really interesting time as a teenager in the early 70s.
Yeah, exactly. I think you as well. I think we're living in the best of age where we missed the war, thank God. I mean, if we had to fight, we go fight. And we saw every invention and the change in society, all good and bad. I mean, we lived through,
right?
We didn't have any real big hardships like our parents and our grandparents had, with no electricity and, stoves and hot water and refrigerators. We grew up at a perfect time. I think to see where we are right now in 2022 and where we were in the 60s and the 70s, I think we're the best generation as far as we've got it made.
We really do. You ever stop and think about, wow, all right, it was only like a couple decades ago that we were using payphones. Like, it's crazy when you stop and think about how fast things have moved.
We used to think of it like a watch that you saw a picture. That was the Jetsons on TV, the cartoon. Right. That was space age. That would never happen. And here we are. We have Apple Watches.
It's like, what's for dinner?
Yeah, exactly. So I think at times we got too ahead of ourselves. I think people don't have time to think anymore. It used to be like, I'll shoot it in the mail to you. Now it's like, fax it to me or email it to me. Take a picture of it. It's now. And I don't think that's good.
Yeah. Everything's sped up so much. Yeah. It's such a true. And we really did have an opportunity. We're like a half a generation apart. But we pretty much came up in the same time, and right. We might have been the last generation to know what that was like, to be able to, if we needed to get picked up from the movies or something, we did a collect call on a payphone.
Right, remember that?
Yeah.
I was just thinking of when I was watching some movie yesterday, when I would cut in on a call, you have I needed to talk to my mom. Breakthrough. You have an emergency call from your son Michael. Okay, hang up, and I would call. Why'd you do that? You get me. I remember that. I was thinking of that yesterday when I was watching an old time movie. But yeah, it's insane. And these kids today have no clue.
Or we would do that, and then the parent would not accept it because what that meant was, come pick me up.
Right.
You wouldn't get charged for the phone call, right?
Exactly.
But it wasn't that long ago, man. And I even, I think back sometimes. I mean, we can remember there was no computers. I mean, I was in high school. There was computers, but you would open a book and you would type some kind of code and a dot would go across the screen.
It was the size of a jukebox.
Right, right. Things have changed really, really quickly. And you're right. We've lived through an amazing, amazing time. And that can be said of other generations too. There was the Industrial Revolution and steel, and there were cars. And so there was the 20s, 30s, 40s. Yes, that changed people's lives. But what we're living through is changing people's lives globally faster than ever. Nothing has ever happened like this before. Nothing.
No. I'm afraid. I'm actually a little bit afraid. I just had a grandfather, 6-month-old granddaughter, and I'm afraid for what's in store for her and her kids. This we're not going to get it. This is not a political show. We're not talking politics, but it's a crazy world out there. If Sinatra was living in this world right now, I think he'd be so fed up. We need a guy like him. He'd tell it the way that it is, and get to set a couple of things straight. But I think he'd be right now very perplexed and be disappointed in society.
That whole generation of people, like, I don't think anybody could believe what's going on today. But it has a way of. By the way, congratulations! I see the pictures on Instagram.
Thank you.
You look very happy.
She's adorable.
And it
changed my whole. That's another thing. As you get older, I had a partner who would tell me, or other people say, "You don't know. Wait till you have a grandkid." And I'm like, "Yeah, look, you have had kids. I can't love them any more than that." And they said, "No, it's a different kind of love." And boy, it is. It gave them a new meaning to Christmas. This past Christmas, celebrating Christmas as a 60-year-old, it's not the same as a kid anymore. But having that grandchild makes a difference.
All right, I want to tie this together, because what you said about Brooklyn, I can relate in a different way. I mean, I grew up in Wayne, which is not Brooklyn, but I grew up with very little, and I had to find my own way. In your own way, it sounds like you had to find your own way, right?
Correct.
Nobody gave you anything.
Middle class family, hardworking.
But you had to work.
Had some luxuries. I'm not going to say I had a tough childhood.
Yeah.
But definitely different than it is today.
Yeah, and you grew up in a neighborhood, in an area that's, like you said, where you see different examples. You decide what path you're going to take, but you saw the good, you saw the bad. Now you have a 6-month-old granddaughter. So what lessons did you take out of the neighborhood, out of Brooklyn, that you've learned and you can pass on to the next generation, to your granddaughter? What are the biggest lessons you took out of that?
Two that come to mind right away, and I think about this every day, is it's your word. What you say, you've got to do. And when people hear your name, they'll have nothing but praise to say about you. Great guy, honest, day is long. If he tells you something, he's going to do it. And that, to me, is the most important thing in the world. But if I say, the latter, more important than that, is when my children come back to me and say, "Dad, I met somebody, some stranger." And I said, my name was Amanda Martocci. Martocci, is your dad Michael? Yeah, that's I love that guy. I hear a lot of that from my children. So that makes me feel so good. And what my children think of me, that's more important than anything in the world, is how they view
integrity. What I'm hearing you say is integrity.
Yeah, big time.
You do what you say you're going to do.
People know it. Very simple. Help others, help others, and do it. What Sinatra taught me, the biggest lesson in his life, you do it and you make sure they don't know that you did it.
You're doing it for the right reasons. It's because you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart.
Right. When I see people post things on the internet of how wonderful they are by what they just did for a stranger, I'm like, you did that for yourself. And why publicize it? We want people to tell you what a great person that you are. Just do it and shut the hell up.
It's funny. Going back to my grandmother for a second, she used to say to me, "You volunteer or you do things for other people, expecting nothing in return." It's just a lesson in life. You don't do expecting things in return. You do because it's the right thing to do.
That generation was very smart.
Yeah.
That's what I miss. Those values back in the 70s of our grandparents and fathers was so different than it is today. It was very simple. It wasn't complicated.
And I guess maybe in some way it ties into what we were just talking about. Times are different. Information is at your fingertips. Everybody's, maybe the word is jaded. Maybe the word is spoiled, entitled. There's all these different things because things are so easy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean it's the work is easy. I mean, we get things. It's just easier. You want something at your door, you could go on Amazon. It'll be here today.
Plus,
We'll be here tomorrow.
everybody tries to outdo everybody.
Yeah.
From the children, the children try to outdo their friends, and the parents try to outdo their parents, other friends, events like who makes a bigger party than this one, or get a bigger car than that one. It's just a lot of insecurity going around.
I'm glad we took the time to get to know you a little deeper. And so this is a big part of how we like to start the shows out. And I can feel the energy coming from you. Like, you can tell you're a guy of integrity. There's no bullshit with you. Like, it's coming right through the screen, and in your voice, we can hear it.
Likewise.
And you can't fake something like that. That's real, man. Tell me how you got into the music side of things.
So there's A and the B. I guess we're going to go A first, music.
Well, I might have it backwards. Which one came first?
Actually, music came first. Well,
that's what I thought.
Well, my love for music came first. I wasn't even a big football fan growing up. So let's
take it in order of like how things happen for you, because you have, like I said, you have two businesses. You're passionate about both, and I love it. Like, I'm excited to hear your story now.
Okay, well,
hit me with it.
Like I said, growing up in the household that was big Sinatra lovers, and my father had a friend who happened to be Frank Sinatra's best friend, by a fellow by the name of Julie Rizzo, who was synonymous in the Sinatra world. It was like
your father's best friend was Julie Rizzo?
Yeah, one of his top friends. Yeah,
that's interesting.
So he was actually best friends with his brother, and then they were all close friends. Anyway, I'm not going to get to another episode. So my father always had that relationship, but I didn't even know about it. But I just liked Sinatra. I just gravitated. I liked the coolness of him. I was a very shy kid. I'm still a shy adult, believe it or not, until I get a microphone and a light on me. But basically, I'm a shy person. And Sinatra was kind of like cool, and he got me out of my shyness. And I used to mimic Sinatra my mother used to run to the store and go shopping. You could walk to the store, and I used to put the music on, and I used to make my had a hairbrush or whatever it was, and I used to make believe I was Frank Sinatra. And then I had such a grandiose imagination that I would tell people that I knew Frank Sinatra just from the stories that my father would have told that he did tell me. And so I mimicked Sinatra. I make like I knew him, kind of, and I kind of knew him from the personality that he was, watching him on television and movies and listening. And I would spend hours after school just mimicking the music and singing. I would play the sad songs, not the big swinging songs, just to get the tone and get the breathing down. Basically self-taught myself.
That breathing, by the way, is a big deal. I mean, from what I understand, what he did was very unusual.
It makes a difference in the world, and I don't know how I got it, but I have that same thing, and how to use the nose and how to use the throat, which makes the difference.
It keeps the phrasing, it keeps things flowing along, right? Without
One of the reasons why I do this now professionally at times is because of the internet, which showed me a lot of people singing Frank Sinatra where they really butchered his music. It was really bad. So I needed to do something about it. And Sinatra always wanted to keep his music alive. I remember him telling me and his conductor and stuff. So fast forward. Later on,
wait, don't go so fast. Hold on. So how old were you? You were a teenager when you were doing this?
12 years old, 11 years old, 13 years old, 14 years old. I built a stage in my basement with spotlights that I found, and I made the main event. It's a big concert I went to see. My dad finally took me to see a Sinatra concert.
Yeah.
It was the main event, Madison Square Garden, October 13th, 1974. Jam-packed with 18,000 people plus, as the album says, Howard Cosell. And then after that, I would do my own concert down in my basement. I would play the introduction by Howard Cosell, and then when Sinatra would walk on, I would walk on. I'd sing The Ladies of Tramp, and deathly afraid that somebody would come home and hear me. Didn't want anybody to see me doing this.
Did you ever record yourself at that time?
Yes.
Like on a cassette player or something?
I found a reel-to-reel recorder.
So you were able to hear it, and you heard you had a voice that you could sing.
I heard that something was there. I heard the tone, tone, which is very difficult to emanate. You just can't fake it. It has to do with your nasal passages and your head, what's inside. But anyway, so I would simulate my own concerts. My father took me to see the show finally. And I kind of had like a love affair with Frank Sinatra, and I would tell people that I know him. It was kind of a little crazy. Long story short, I met his secretary through my father's friend, and she took a liking to me. And anytime Sinatra would come into the city, Michael could come up to the office and work in the Sinatra office and hang out. They loved me. And that time I was 16. And so I used to hang out in the Waldorf Astoria. Never around Sinatra, but they would always do their business in his suite. He wouldn't come into the office. So I really never saw him a lot. And then they took a real liking to me. and then I met him. And then trying to put this all pieces, this is kind of really nostalgic for me too, this interview, to see where I've come. Like, you never really look back at yourself and looked at the story until something like this to say, wow, this is pretty crazy. So I met him, and they would invite me to the shows. They liked the idea of a young guy that was so into the music that Sinatra was generational. He wanted to keep it alive with the younger generation. And they saw me as an example of that, I guess. And so the relationship kept going. They would play local dates out of New York, like maybe New Jersey, which was a Latin casino in Cherry Hill. And I drive there with a friend who was old enough to drive, and we get into the show, and they sit me right in the front, no charge for tickets. And that's how that Sinatra relationship developed. Then I was reintroduced as my father's friend, was Jilly at the time. And I talked to Jilly, and I was just going into the travel business at that time. I got a job working at this big travel company in New York. And I came up with this idea of, why don't we do packages to see Sinatra in concert in other countries, in other cities, and put a weekend together and sell it. There was Sinatra radio stations at the time. We'll advertise on there. I'll go to the Sinatra organization for tickets, and we'll bring these people to see them. Lo and behold, we started doing party packages. There was a DJ called Sid Mark, who to this day still does his Sunday with Sinatra show out of Philadelphia, who became friends with Sinatra back in the 60s. Sid's like 90, and he still does his Sunday show. I called up Sid, convinced him to host the show, host the trip. We did, if Sinatra was playing at the Spectrum in Philadelphia, that he would host it. We would advertise on his radio station. You come to the Sheridan Society Hill. You sit down, have a big dinner, Sinatra music playing. We do trivia contest. Then you walk outside the building, jump on buses, take it to the Spectrum, see the show, and then come back and have a dance party. And we sold that package for $99. And lo and behold, we'd sell 300, 400, 500 of them out.
No kidding.
So I knew we were onto something. I did it for other concerts. And then I met Sinatra's manager, who at the time was this gentleman by the name of Mickey Rudin, which wasn't very well revered by a lot of people. And I really never had a great relationship with him, but thank God things transpired. If you read the book, Elliot's book, The Way It Was, Elliot Wiseman, who we both know, who is now Sinatra's executive as well, and was his last manager. I went through him, through Jilly, and Elliot was able to help me get tickets to concerts in other countries. So we did our famous Sinatra in Italy tour, where you went to Milan, Rome, and Pompeii to see him in 3 different spots, all within a week, and then toured Italy. And that's
When
how
was
that.
this?
What's that?
This is now in the 80s?
This is back in the this is in the early 80s.
Yeah.
Early
okay.
80s, up until 90.
So what are you, 20 years old? I'm not good at math. What are you, 20 years old already?
I started in the Sinatra office at 16 years old. And by then I was probably 19, 20.
Yeah. Okay.
Drinking in Italy, drinking wine. It was wonderful, And in the meantime, I would do a Sinatra song at one of these parties. I get enough nerve, I have enough of wine, maybe a couple of Jack Daniels. And at the closing party, I'd sing with the guy I hired, some piano player, and people liked it. I was shocked.
You got good reactions.
Got good reaction. And I was very shy to do that. And, when I look back what I did then and what I do now, I was definitely not a professional. I could tell the difference. I learned a lot.
Do you remember the feeling when you were up there doing that?
Euphoric.
You can remember it. You can feel it.
It transforms you. Now I know what it feels like when I do a show or when I do an hour on stage. You're just in a different place and time. And it's like, I guess, what drug addicts feel like. But this is a good drug.
So you got a little taste of that when you were doing these songs towards the end of these shows.
Yeah, that's basically what
Okay.
got me the itch. But I
Okay.
never did anything with it,
Yeah.
and then I started singing again. I never forget my second kid, my child, my son Michael. It was his baptism. We were at this place, the Maui Picture Hotel in Red Bank, New Jersey. And I had a 5-piece band I hired. And I decided to go up and do 4 songs, which was a big deal for me in front of my family and friends. I'd never done this before. My ex-wife at the time and my other children. And it was a standing ovation. And people came over to me and said, you should do something with this. And there we go. So I decided.
Was that really the start of it right there?
Right there. That's what catapulted me to now. I called up out of nowhere. I got a hold of a friend who had Vinnie Falcone, who was Sinatra's conductor in the 80s up until right before 1990. He was the leader of the house band at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. And the old man, which we call Mr. Sinatra, the old man affectionately, signed him on to be his conductor and pianist. So I had the coglions, as we say, the Italians, to get a hold of him and tell him, I want you to be my conductor, which he laughed the first time. You want me to be your conductor? Who are you? I convinced him to fly him from Las Vegas to New York. I asked my friend who owned the China Club in New York City if I could use his club, because I know he had a piano there. And I needed to do this 1 or 2 hour spontaneous concert with Frank Sinatra's former conductor, who might take a chance on me. He came and he loved it. I was shocked. I had my father there, and my father was my inspiration for all this, by the way. And Vinny played the piano and watched me sing, and he says, I'm in. And we did our first show together. So put a nice Sinatra show together. This was when Frank was retired, and I hired Dina Martin, which is Dean's daughter.
Yeah.
Pat Cooper, the comedian. Sid Mark to host it. Vinnie Falcone to conduct the orchestra, and I hired a 40-piece orchestra, and I did my Come Fly With Me show. Memories of Frank, I called it. The Paramount Theater in Asbury Park.
You got to fill the gaps in for me there. How did you fund something like that? That sounds like a big undertaking.
Just my own money. I did it. I didn't have a lot. I didn't have a lot of success young at that age. I saw like any other kid. I had a paper route back in Brooklyn when I was a kid. And then I was always working. I was always working. Work took me away from I was very, very shy. And work kept me out of my shyness, basically. So yeah, I funded it all myself. The show sold out. We did 1,600 people, which was crazy. And I was not a professional at that time. I remember having my friends, we had a hotel suite before the show, and we drank a half a bottle of Jack Daniels. You don't do that before a show.
How do you sing if you're drunk?
First of all, you don't sing right, and right. It does, it dries your vocal cords.
Yeah.
So I never forget. I convinced the music critic for the Asbury Park Press to come see the show. Never forget this. And when I read the review, I was a little disappointed. He liked the show, but he called me out, basically. And I said, never again. I'm going to take this seriously. And I tried to convince Elliot Wiseman again. Elliot's still in my life. And Elliot at the time was managing Don Rickles. And I thought I'd be a perfect opening act for Don Rickles because of the Sinatra-Rickles connection. And he was like, get out of here. You're out of your mind. And I said, come on. I must have hounded him for about a year. And he said, I'm going to put you on the show. So I said, call Vinnie Falcone. And Vinnie vouched for me. So he says, I got you. You're going to open up for Don Rickles at Bally's Grand in Atlantic City in June or whatever year it was. I forget the year. And I opened up for Don Rickles. And after that one opening, I played Broadway with Don Rickles. I played Vegas 3 times. I played Atlantic City 10 times. I played Foxwoods. I played Westbury. I was a singer.
Opened up for you.
I opened up, but that wasn't my life. In the middle of all this, my second business came, which we'll talk about. So I was basically being a rock star and then going to bed.
I want to back up a second because I didn't want to interrupt you because you were just flowing so nicely, but I'm hearing persistence in there. A lot of persistence.
And I'm not a persistent guy, but I guess I am.
I mean,
When I
you
want
went after
something.
Elliott for a year till he finally
When I
gave in.
want
He's like,
something,
"Ah,
I
fuck."
guess I don't like to push anybody, but I guess when I'm passionate becomes the pushing, you know? So I guess if you're passionate about something and you feel you're not that kind of guy, that you're not persuasive or you don't want to come on too strong, it's going to come out because of your passion's going to come out. And that's what will drive you. So forget if you're a little people, when they think of an idea, it's never going to work. Try it.
Go for it.
You're passionate about it. Listen, the least you can say is you tried it didn't work. But the next opportunity you get, it's going to be even better. So passion.
And along the way there, so you said call Falcone, he's going to vouch for me. You were working with him for that year, the whole time.
Right, we were doing odd things on and off, all stuff I would fund.
He knew you. I mean, pretty well at this point.
Yeah, I would rent a theater and produce my own show because I was a concert promoter at heart. When I was 16 years old, I wanted to be a concert promoter.
All right, that was I want to know how you know how to do this. So you knew how to navigate this.
That's another thing.
Because I'm listening to you, I'm like, hey, making up as you go along. How do you know this?
When I was 16 years old, my dad's friend owned a nightclub in Brooklyn, New York called 2001 Odyssey. And it was very famous because Saturday Night Fever was recorded there, the movie. So if you remember the dance scenes and John Travolta, that was that dance floor that I went to all the time with with a buddy of mine who was a year older than me that had a couple of hours. And we went one night.
You would go there and dance.
I would go there, try to pick up women, but it never worked.
The more you say you're shy, every time you say you're shy, you tell me some other story about how unshy you are.
Well, it's the spurts I get. I don't know what it is. I'm basically a shy guy. Try to explain. My wife will laugh when I say that. So we would go one Saturday night to 2001 Odyssey, and we get there at 9:00, and we see all these people leaving. I'm saying, what the hell is going on here? They would have the Tramps would be performing. It's a big disco group. Hey. They would do 8 o'clock. They would do 6 o'clock. Open the doors, one show, throw everybody out, turn it over, and do another show. I'm like, wow. We went back the next Saturday night, and Gloria Gaynor was performing there. The same thing happened. So I had this idea to my buddy. I said, I got a good idea. I never knew where to go, who to hire, how to get an artist, how to promote a concert. I said, why don't we find a place that's 2 times the size of the Odyssey and have the both of them perform in one night? I said, we'll kill it. It's going to be crazy. We went and found the catering hall in Brooklyn. I called up. I don't know how I found, I went through the yellow pages for talent. I don't know how I found who represents the Tramps, who represents Gloria Gaynor. I found them. I negotiated to pay them. I think I overpaid them, I'm sure, because they took advantage of this stupid little kid.
You should have asked Elliott what to do.
At that time, I should have. This was before that was prior to my relationship with Elliott. So I was on my own at that time. And we did that show and sold it out.
Wow.
We did another one 2 months later. We did the Village People. Sold that out. So that's where
the Village People. They were huge back then.
I had a cousin of mine who happened to be gay at the time when it wasn't cool to be gay. And he took me and my mother out to this place in the city to see this band. It was the Village People. I said, this band is going to be huge.
Oh, this is before they hit it.
Before they hit it. Guy gave me his card. It was Felipe Rose. He was the Indian in the Village People.
Yeah.
I never forget. I saved the card. And when I just heard this first song came out, Macho Man.
Yeah.
It was big. I called them up. I said, I got to have you.
It was huge.
No problem. I had them. It was so big that I booked them 3 months in advance. It was so big, they wanted to get out of the show because 2 months later, they played Madison Square Garden and sold out. But they had to play my dinky show at the Cotillion Terrace in Brooklyn. It was pretty funny.
They did it.
So yeah, I was in the concert promotion business at 17. I went to work with my mentor, Ron Delsner, out of New York City. He was my idol. He was one of the biggest concert promoters in New York City. Him and Bill Graham was out of San Francisco. Ron was out of New York. And so yeah, I guess it was pretty, thinking of it now, it's pretty cool. Pretty
Ron
cool. I've been all over the place.
Big name.
Ron was a big name. I worked at his office on East 67th Street out of a townhouse. Yeah. Back then, he did Elton John and Billy Joel and the Stones and anyone who was anybody, The Who. And I got the
I mean, every show that came through the Byrne Arena, or what it's called, the
Yeah, Brendan Byrne, which is now the Continental Airlines Arena.
every show that came through there, his name was on the ticket.
Yeah, Ron Delson presents.
Yeah, yeah, back in the 80s, 90s.
Yeah, and I in fact, one more thing. I went to Ron Delson. I said, I got a great idea, which we spoke about before. I said, let's take 200, not the best seats in the house, decent, that you're only going to put on sale and sell it at Ticketron for $15 a ticket or $20 a ticket. Let's take that ticket for a hot show and put a party around it, like our the Sinatra party package. And he says, brilliant. And we did Rod Stewart, we did Eric Clapton, we did Elton John, and the party package was born. So I helped bring that to life. Back, I was 19 years old, was the party pack, 18 years old for the party package, which they do now all the time. VIP packaging, that the concert industry has changed. I'm not gonna say I changed it, but I definitely was one of the people that introduced it.
Were either of your parents entrepreneurs?
Nope. My mother was a stay-home mom. My father opened up his own air conditioning refrigeration business. Not widely successful, but pretty decent. Gave a nice living. He had the Cadillac came out with a convertible. He had one in his driveway. No, he liked the finer things in life. But no, I would guess that's a little entrepreneuric. But
you're a creative guy. You're a creative entrepreneur. I mean, I'm listening to the ideas. You know what I'm talking about. It's one thing after the other.
I don't think it's anything. I just think it's like normal. I don't know.
No, it's not normal. This is uncommon.
Like I play the drums, just like anybody else can play the drums professionally. Never took a lesson in my life. It's just, and it's amazing when I watch myself play that you got 4 extremities of your body doing 4 different things. It's pretty wild. And it's just natural to me. So that my drumming helped me sing Sinatra much better.
You have a very creative, you're wired very creatively. It's so interesting that your parents were more traditional, middle class working, but you have this super creative artistic side, which is pretty much everything you touch seems like, in a way, it's a creative artistic endeavor.
Well, my grandfather on my father's side, my father's father was a vaudeville piano player. So I would guess I hear music all the time. Another thing I was a DJ in nightclubs, and I got to DJ some mixes on one of the biggest music stations in New York City's KTU.
You were on
Saturday nights. So I was doing some mixes on KTU, working in a nightclub, booking. This was like in high school. Yeah. I was booking bands, the disco artists, to play Saturday nights in this big local nightclub.
You were still in Brooklyn at the time.
Still in Brooklyn.
See, that's the thing a lot of people may not realize. When you come from where you come from, even where I come from in northeastern Jersey, right outside New York City, everybody is somebody. Everybody knows somebody, and there is more opportunity in that part of the country than if you live in most other places. You were at the epicenter, especially at that time.
Right.
Timing. You can't control the timing, but your timing was pretty damn good to be doing the things you're doing, interested in what you're interested in, and being in Brooklyn.
Well, life can't be hunky dory. Every story I tell you is going to be good. There was a dark side at one time because of growing up in the 80s and growing up in the nightclubs. There was excess. And that excess almost cost me my life. It must almost cost me my livelihood because of overindulgence and whether it be alcohol or whatever the drug was at the time.
Yeah.
And the alcohol and the drugs got me out of my shyness. So I had to deal with that a long period of my life.
This is nice. So you're in the 80s. You're in your 20s, 30s.
Right. No. In the 80s, I was in my 20s.
But now you're going 20s into your 30s, and this
20s.
is all happening. It's the 80s, right. It's the 90s. That was a time of indulgence.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot of things were everywhere. Now you're in entertainment, right? Plus you're around. We're going to get to this right now. You were around the sports world, right? So there was a lot of fun. There was a lot of opportunity. There was a lot of.
It was one big party.
This is where your character begins to get, maybe not your character. It's sort of like the good and bad. I'm not sure if that's the word is character, but you start to get tested. You're tested probably on a regular basis. And
I failed a couple of times.
Do you want to talk about that, or you want to get into that at all?
Yeah, it is. all I could say, I don't have no problem talking about it. I think that's for another podcast or somebody else's podcast that deals with that stuff. But, remember when you're flying high, there's always stuff that's going to hit you. And whether you do it to yourself or other people are going to try to knock you down. And usually you're the worst enemy of yourself and your success. So learn to deal with it and don't think much of it. Don't get high on yourself. Just have gratitude and be humble.
Gratitude.
And be humble and just know you can lose it in 2 seconds.
That's one of the most valuable things that anybody's ever said on the show.
No.
And when I listen to other people, I follow some people who are billionaires who have gone from nothing, and I just follow them. And there's a common belief system, which is gratitude. And it's just be grateful, like truthfully be grateful from your heart, not just saying the words, yeah, I'm grateful, like really feel it. Like you're grateful that you have your family and you have your granddaughter and, you've got this wonderful life you've built, right? And I'm sure I can tell you have a tremendous amount of actual gratitude. It's hard to say it to a 30-year-old who's on their way up. So you might turn to your 30-year-old version of yourself now, and that might be the advice.
Well, when you always say, wish you knew now what you then, what you knew now, that doesn't work. It's just, that's not logical because you don't know then what you know now. You need to get to now. And, I always say to myself, I don't know, people measure their success by wealth. I don't. I could have made millions of dollars, but I didn't trust myself making millions of dollars. I wouldn't be around much for family and friends and children and stuff like that. And I felt I if I had that excess, I think that something bad would happen. So I never ask. I get just what I need, and
You're
just
really
and a little more.
You know yourself pretty well.
That's all I want. Because
Yeah.
if I cross that line, I don't know if I'm coming back. I don't want to. I always got to worry. I never want to be broke. That keeps me motivated to do things and just make the amount of money that I need to say, I'm going to pick up on vacation. I'm going to buy this for that. I don't have attributes where I need a $250,000 car, or I need a private jet. I don't have to have that. That's not reality. I'm sorry. That's my take on it. I just want to be grounded enough just to know I have enough and a little bit more, but not excess. Excess kills.
It's interesting because when you by the way, you're right. You are right. And it's a really valuable lesson. I guess more people on their way up who are really successful in entertainment might want to take that more seriously.
Yeah. When is it enough? When do you
when
have
is
enough?
enough?
I mean,
everybody's
really.
always got more. There's always somebody who's got more. There's never an end to it. So what's enough for you?
Right. It's what your limits are. What makes you happy? So that's what I've learned. That's the best discipline that I have for myself. So I never want to be broke, and I never don't need enough. I don't need more, just enough.
When we were talking a little while ago, and you mentioned integrity and what your family thinks of you, what other people think of you, it's interesting because I'm hearing actually somewhere in there that might tie into what you're talking about right now. That's like a governor on like, whoa, all of that matters. And underneath it's always at play. Like, I'm not going there because what my family thinks of me is more important than me having a good time and doing whatever,
But people understand what we're talking about. I only in New Jersey and New York might know the governor, meaning the governor on your, like a motorcycle or a mini bike.
Yeah.
To have back in the day.
Yeah.
You open up the governor, it goes too fast.
It's faster. Yeah.
It goes such fast. So you got to control it.
That's interesting. Your governor is that check where it's like it matters to me what people think of me. It matters. That's
not a bad thing. People say, I don't give a crap what anybody thinks, but that's dangerous.
Yeah.
That's very dangerous. You should care.
You should care, and not in a vain way, which is not what you're saying.
No.
This isn't. It's about respect.
It's in an intellect way.
This isn't about the nonsense with like social media where people care what you're doing or what. It does matter what you because you're setting an example for your children, for your grandchildren. I'm setting an example for my children. You're setting an example for generations to come of how your children are going to raise their kids or are going to raise their kids. It all matters. It all matters. So if you're a degenerate, that's actually probably going to start a bad pattern of behavior, right? So it's very, very like deep seated. It's not like about what people think of you on the surface,
Listen, when you show me somebody who went bad in life at a young age, show me a picture of their parents or something about their parents, and there you go. It doesn't go far back.
Yeah.
As they say, the apple don't fall far from the tree. It's very simple. Just instill in your kids what you respect.
That's right.
Respect is the biggest word of this day. There's none out there. There are some out.
Bring me to. All right. So it sounds like you had a couple of decades, right? So you had a lot of success. You were working with Elliott. You're working with Don Rickles. Give me the last few pieces that got you to where you are now.
Nice and simple, because it all kind of blends in together.
Yep.
So when I came up with the idea of doing party packages and doing trips to see Sinatra in Italy and Las Vegas and stuff like that, I met a gentleman through another company. I was doing shows at Carnegie Hall, and there was a company there that would brilliant business plan they had. They would rent Carnegie Hall on the nights nobody wanted it. Mother's Night, Mother's Day, Labor Day weekend, and bare bones. And they would bring in choirs and bands, orchestras from all around the country, and do a package in New York, a travel package in the city, and then culminated with a concert at Carnegie Hall. So you actually would perform in Carnegie Hall to friends and family, and guys like me who would paper the audience. I thought this was a genius idea. If you're like a high school band or a choral club, they would tailor it to bands and choruses. Anyhow, the gentleman that did that introduced me to the travel guy who ran the travel component of it. He owned this company that he started. He bought it for $50,000. When he died last year, he was my partner. The company was doing $2.8 billion in travel. So he built it up to that. I met him when he just was flourishing. He was a big Sinatra fan, and he was a Jewish guy who wanted to be Italian. So we fit in perfully.
But I thought Jews and Italians are the same anyway, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But he liked that. He was from Brooklyn, street guy, always got in trouble when he was young, and he made himself. He was on the verge of making himself. Not to what he thought what he did up until last year, but he made himself. Anyhow, we were both talking about sports, and at that time I became a little bit of a Giant fan because I won the Super Bowl pool with the Giants, the final score. And I became a Giant fan because I think it was $5,000 back in there. It was a lot of money.
This is back in 91.
So I became a Giant fan again. And I started going to see some games. I met Barry, my partner at the time, Barry Levin, and he was a huge Giant fan. And that year, this was 1990, and the Giants, I never forget this, the Giants were playing Monday Night Football against the San Francisco 49ers. It was like week 11 going into the season. And they were both 5-0. As I got closer, they were both undefeated. And then they had this big game coming up. So me and Barry said, since he's in the travel business, I told him about the packages that I did with Sinatra. I said, why don't we do a trip to go to San Francisco to watch this game? There's got to be Giant fans. And at the time, it was feasible. At the time, WFAN was the big sports radio station in New York City. And there was this Mike and the Mad Dog.
Right.
They were on from 2 to 7 weekday afternoons. And I said, we got to get Mike and the Mad Dog to host this trip, make it even bigger. I convinced them to do it. Me and Barry did. They decided to broadcast live from our cocktail parties out in California. The trip was a huge success. I'll never forget, we ran out of tickets. At that time, we had to buy tickets through ticket brokers. And you looked up, you didn't have the internet then. I would run by the San Francisco Chronicle up the block on 42nd Street and look at the back of the paper for ticket brokers. We need 6 more tickets. We need 8 more. We need another hotel. 500 people. That was, it wound up that both teams lost the week before playing that game. So they both had losing records. Both lost one game. Anyway, the trip was a huge success. And that same year, the Giants went back to the NFC Championship game and played the 49ers that same year. So we got to another trip with another 400 people out there. Giants beat the 49ers, went to the Super Bowl. We got to do a trip. We had the perfect storm. So we saw a business model was born. So we should do this for a couple of road games a year. We'll figure out who they're playing, who are the key cities, and then we'll go. When they play Dallas, when they play Miami, And the nickname of the Giants back then was Big Blue. So we came up with the name Big Blue Travel. And that was 31 years ago. We went to the Giants after 3 years, and we talked the Giants into making us the official. Let us be part of the team. This is when there was nobody doing this. Now every team has a travel company. So we had a business model. To this day, the season is almost over next week, and thank God for this terrible season we had. But to this day, we are still the partners with the New York Football Giants, and season road trips and Super Bowl trips and all. So.
And it's another passion of yours.
Another passion. So now football season is over. I'll be doing some concerts. I go back to being a rock star, which is great. And I love bringing my friends. It's kind of like the movie Entourage, the TV show Entourage on HBO. Yeah. We all hang out. Old time Entourage, old man Entourage.
Yeah.
And so I got all my, listen, I now I have a grandkid, and just, I don't speak about this. I don't do many interviews like this. So it's really been a blessing and a pleasure to really, it's kind of like a self-retrospective of my life. It's pretty interesting. So I could close this interview knowing that, I had a pretty good life. There were a lot of rough times and dark times, but everybody gets that. It makes you stronger.
Tell me something. This is so people that just meet you today. And the same can be true for me or anybody who's successful in their own right. They know you how they see you now. Was there a point where you had some sort of low point where maybe these dreams seemed like they weren't going to be reality, and you were really down on yourself, and you had to get yourself up off the ground and keep on going?
I had some dark times where I didn't want to look myself in the mirror. But you need that self-pity. You need that to build up more character in yourself, because you're either going to wallow in your crap, as they say, or you're going to pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and start all over again. And nobody's going to feel sorry for you if you decide to sit in the mud. So you have to look at yourself and you got to prove it to yourself first. That and everything else falls into place. You got to say you can do it. You can do anything. You look at the human mind can do anything. You can be anybody you want to be. You don't have to be the best at it. You just try hard. Try to be the best. And whatever you can do should be enough for you.
And when you hit those low points and you get through them, you do actually build confidence in yourself. You're not thinking about, building confidence, but little by little, every time you knock a wall down, you keep on going, you learn that, I can do it. I can. Next thing you know, you have a lot of confidence, and it keeps getting higher and higher.
You actually appreciate the low times. You see what the low times have done. Listen, even Frank Sinatra had that in his career when he said he couldn't sing anymore. Ava Gardner left him. There's the rumor that he called her up on the phone and he shot a gun into a mattress to make her think that he killed himself. He was that low and down. And he basically, a year later, he won the Oscar, for Here From Eternity.
Yeah.
And so you need, I listen, I don't wish that upon anybody. God bless you if you can jump over that hurdle and never have that dark time. But I think the dark time makes you stronger, builds character, and never makes you go back to the darkness again.
That's the education.
Like touching a stove and burning yourself.
Yeah.
As a kid, you're never going to touch that flame again.
100%. You have an interesting life, man.
It's
interesting story.
Well, I appreciate you allowing me to share it with you, because it was like therapy for me.
Listen, anytime you want, my couch is available. You can lay down, you can talk.
Not
if
that
you're
kind
feeling
of
down in the dumps, or if you want to have whatever.
Well, listen, I was gracious enough to come and talk to you. Now you got to be gracious enough to come hear me sing on January 22nd at the Turnberry Isle.
I'm going to be there. 100%.
Sinatra, Come Fly With Me, presented by Elliot Weissman, who I've taken out of retirement. As you know, Elliot has managed Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis, Stephen Eady, Don Rickles, Liza Minnelli, Julio Iglesias. This man has come out of retirement to take on a Sinatra guy. To me, that's mind-boggling that I could get Elliot to do that. So hopefully you come and see it and you put your 2 cents in and let me know how you thought.
I want to tell you something. This morning, before I left to come to my office, I walked in the kitchen and I said to my wife, listen to this. And I forget what song it was. The Lady's a Tramp, I think. I put it on and I said, listen to this. Isn't this great? And I have Frank Sinatra on all the time in the car or whatever. She didn't think anything of it. I said, sounds like Frank, right? She's like, that's not Frank Sinatra? And I showed her,
That's the greatest compliment of all.
I said, this is the guy that I'm interviewing today. She's like, you're kidding me. And she looked, she's like, oh my God.
Make sure you bring her with you.
She'll come. But it really, you are doing such a service by keeping this music alive. And I started out by saying I wanted to thank you, and I do. And I can't wait to come see you in person, and I'll be there.
Well, I appreciate that. This has been great, and I thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you in person.
You will. And before we finish, the last thing I want you to tell me is there anything else, any social media, any other shows, anything else you want us to put out there?
This Come Fly With Me is great. I have a website called michaelsingssinatra.com.
Okay. Beautiful.
And Big Pooch, any Giant fans, don't lose hope. 2022, we're going to Green Bay and we're going to Nashville. Those would be 2 killer trips.
Nashville, I'm in.
Okay. Great. Listen, Happy New Year.
You too. Listen, I want to end it like this. We do this show because we want to inspire people. We want to motivate people. And that's what you did today.
I appreciate that.
Anybody that watches this is going to get that.
And tell Anthony, thank you for listening in and having to hear all this gibberish.
You got it.
Take care, guys. Have a great day.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you very much.